Hi, here we are. I've got all the blocks on the Mulberry Millie frame used as a design wall. I've pretty much got them in the spot that I want them in. And what I've done is they're double-sided. There's cotton at the front and there's flannelette at the back. It's going to be a rag quilt. Because it's a little bit heavier set up like that, it's not going to stick to the flannelette that easily, because flannelette to flannelette doesn't stick that well. I've actually pinned them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them down one row at a time, sew the row together, and then pin it back up there, and then sew the next row and the next row and the next row, etc., etc. And once that's all done, I'll show you that when all the rows are sewed together, and then I'll sew all the blocks are sewed into rows. Then I'll sew the rows together to make the quilt. I'll just let you know this is going to be a lap quilt, and what I've done, I've made them 6.5 inch blocks so that when they're sewn together they're going to end up 5.5 inches. So there's 10 across and 10 down. There's 100 blocks there, and what I've done is divided the 100 blocks, because each block I've made 4 of each block. So I've divided the quilt into quarters, and I've got 25 blocks in each quarter. So in that quarter I've distributed each block, and then in the next quarter I've used the same blocks and distributed them in a different way, and done that in the 4 quarters. I like to use a walking foot when I'm sewing my squares together, because if you look carefully here, there are in actual fact 4 layers of fabric, and the flannelette tends to slip a little bit, so I have less mistakes if I use the walking foot. I also pin each of my sets of squares together in the way I'm going to sew them, so it minimises my unpicking when I have been known in the past to sew a flannelette side to a cotton side and then had to unpick it all. So this way I've found that I have less problems. What I've done now is the first 3 rows I've sewn the squares together, and then I've decided that I'm going to turn all of them over, and I just wanted to do that to just have an overall look at the back of the quilt, because I like my backs to be different from my fronts, and just see if there was any glaring colours, you know, that maybe I didn't really want close to each other. So I have actually, in actual fact, moved a few of them, and I might have to consider moving some others too. These little spots here, I'll have to think about whether these are too close together, and then there's another one down there. But it gets to a point where you've just had enough, I think, and you just throw up your hands and say, that's it, I'm done. Hi, well, it's all done now, and here I've just finished it off with a decorative stitch around the edge, and then I've trimmed the edge there, ragged that, because that's the look I like. I've used these scissors here. They're spring-loaded little scissors, especially to snip the rag quilts with. It's still quite a tedious job, but these little scissors make it a lot easier to do. Here's my quilt all finished. That's the front of it. I think I'm very pleased with how it's come out. It's all nicely frilled there. So I've washed it after I sewed it together and cut all the bits. I washed it and put it through the dryer. So it's exactly the way I wanted it. I'm really very pleased with that. Here's the back. All those lovely bright colours, and it's flannelette, so it'll just be ideal for spring and autumn in Brisbane. Thank you for watching. And this is Anne from Mulberry, Millie. Rag Quilt basting frames.